Rennala. Nothing says we're done like parking an egg on a woman's bookshelf and leaving your guard dog at the door. Hello, fellow Tarnished. Last time we assessed that the amber egg wasn't a gift at all to Rennala, but something much darker. We learned that the rune of Unborn Demigod was removed from the Elden Ring way before the Shattering, and that it's likely what caused the Age of Plenty to come to an end, and that it was also part of a much bigger plan of Marika. Anyway, if you want the full story, make sure to check out the previous episode, because today we're digging into the why the amber egg was given to Rennala and what I think really happened between Radagon, Rennala, and Marika. So let's begin. As we know, Radagon was clearly able to easily take a great rune away from the Elden Ring and give it to Rennala in the form of the amber egg, which is the rune of Unborn Demigod. As we also know, the life juice in the lands between is sap. Sap is what Marika uses to make new life, and amber is solidified sap. So a lot around the golden amber egg, containing the rune of Unborn Demigod, and the fact that it can rebirth creatures, points at it being the rune of birth or rebirth. And we know for sure that it's possible to remove runes from the Elden Ring, as it happened before when the rune of death was removed and given to Malekith. And now the rune of birth is joining the family of orphaned runes. But let's finally get to the point. We now know that someone in the Marika Radagon household purposely and willingly took a rune away from the Elden Ring, a very important rune. So why would either of them do anything like this? Why would Marika remove the rune of rebirth from the Elden Ring to give it to Rennala? Or even, if you want to go with the theory that Marika and Radagon are their own separate persona, why would Radagon take it? Either way you look at it, it would make no sense for either of them, as gods and hosts of the Elden Ring, to take this crucial rune away from it and give it away. So what happened? Well, it's all speculation, of course, but I think I have some interesting facts to back this up. So join me in agreeing or disagreeing with this brand new mad theory. Here it goes. So let's start by rewinding a little to set the ground. We know that something fishy is going on between Radagon and Marika. We know this from a few interesting facts. First of all, we have this odd message that says Radagon is Marika, so this bi aspect of their being is clearly a secret thing, something people don't know about. In fact, they believe that Radagon is the consort, so they're both seen as separate individuals by the world. Then we have this very interesting, threatening message from Marika, where she tells Radagon that he has not yet become her, and so she's going to kill both of them before that happens, which could imply she has some worry that he would take over from her at some point. The second one is particularly interesting, as there isn't really any way to kill a god, theoretically, and so Marika's threat to Radagon could be void. Unless she plays her cards very carefully and with a very long, carefully crafted plan, one that needs a lot of pieces to fall together perfectly at the right time. So, given that Marika can't kill a god or can't kill herself just yet, she needs to come up with a good long-term plan for it. A plan that could have even taken thousands of years and possibly, you guessed it, involved us too. So the question is now, what do you need to kill a god? Well, the god needs to become killable. You need a weapon able to kill a god, and you need someone willing to do it. Potentially you would also need a replacement god, but that's not necessary apparently. So we have the weapon able to kill a god. We know poor Master Hugh is forced to make us one, he tells us so himself. We have the someone willing to do it, that's us. Funnily enough, we even have a bunch of gods licking our butts, hoping to become the next ruling deity, but never mind that. And finally, we have the rune of birth in the way. This is where you should watch the other video first, but TLDR, life stopped when the rune of Unborn Demigod was taken from the Elden Ring, in a similar way that the rune of death was also previously removed. So, what does this rune of the Unborn Demigod does? Well, it's made of amber, so as we previously said, it was likely the sap of the Age of Plenty that suddenly stopped being produced and also suddenly stop all the rebirth and death absorption process halfway. Likely it is also the way Marika was giving birth to her children. The clue is in the name, the rune of the unborn demigod. The previous ones are probably born in the same way. The rune of rebirth could have also been what gives Marika and Radagon immortality. In the same way, the rune of death is capable of killing a demigod. Removing the rune of life would have prevented their immortality, maybe weaken their life. Here is where the speculation I made before comes into play and helps us back this theory. Hear me out. Remember that we said when we observe the rebirth process from Rennala's point of view, her sweet things are reborn anew but weaker each time. So what if the egg is feeding on their essence? And what if the egg, the rune, when it was part of the Elden Ring, so when it was part of Marika, served the same dark purpose, to feed the ring itself, to feed Marika and the lives that were going through the Erdtree rebirth process? This would explain very clearly why Marika removed the rune of rebirth from the ring after threatening Radagon that she would shatter both. Now she's weaker, making her shattering possible. So Marika needs to get rid of this rune. Runes don't seem to be able to be destroyed, and so she needs to hide it somewhere. And this is where the cuckoo plan comes in. She finds a suitable candidate, Rennala, one of the most powerful entities left in the lands between, and decides to use her. Now, Marika could have never just walked over to the Karen Manor, knock on the door, and ask her to babysit for her. No, I mean, she was waging a war against her, so she needed a better plan. In my theory, this is when she uses Radagon, or Radagon shape, to trick her to marry him, ending the war all at the same time. Whether Radagon was part conscious of this or not, frankly I don't really care, and doesn't make much difference to this story. It could have been, or not been. It could also have been that Marika was in and out of her trip, sometimes being Radagon, sometimes being her, with a red wig, don't know that. Anyway, fact is that at some point, Rennala is ready to become the cuckoo egg host and take care of the rune of the unborn demigod for Marika. So, when Radagon leaves her, he gives her this burden that will forever change poor Rennala's life for the worst. But the rune is now away from the Elden Ring and with a safe host. Now, this is where things start to get interesting, as at this point, when Marika leaves Rennala with the egg, we start hearing very little about Marika and a lot more of Radagon. Statues of him get erected in the capital and in various churches, and it's also at this point that Mikkel and Malenia come in. And they have a very interesting part to this theory, for two reasons. First of all, in most of their lore, it references their father, the gift exchange between Mikkel and Radagon and their connection to the Golden Order, which was Radagon's obsession. It seems like he was much more present than the mother. It could imply that Radagon was Marika at this point, much more than Marika was Marika. The statue in Leyndell also hints at this. Second point is their affliction. This is particularly interesting because they would have been born from a ring or a process that was missing two runes, the rune of birth, which was left with Rennala, and the rune of death, which is with Maliket and was previously removed. And their afflictions, well, they reflect just this. Mikela is stuck in birth or youth, and Malenia is stuck in death. And it's at this point, after a series of other events, sure, that Marika finally shatters the Elden Ring. She has now removed the rune of rebirth, potentially draining away her supply of life. She has sent Godfrey and the Tarnished away. She has instructed Master Hugh to make a weapon able to kill a god. So she's finally able to shatter her and consequently Radagon, but to what purpose? Well, one speculation is to stop Radagon. If we think of the action and the consequences, well, then it's kinda simple. The gesture of shattering the Elden Ring leads to Marika's imprisonment. Marika was smart. She must have known of the consequences of such act. She must have known that shattering the Elden Ring would have not ended up well for her. However, she tried, and she did, and this did lead to her imprisonment. But, and this is the key to this theory, her being imprisoned means Radagon is imprisoned too, and that means neither of them holds power anymore. They are trapped together, an eternal reflection, each the cage of the other. But what was Radagon's plan really? Was he trying to perfect himself, to become the true god of the Golden Order? Or did Marika see what he was becoming and decided to end it all before it was too late? Maybe this wasn't a war between gods at all, but a war within one god. Battle between faith and rebellion, creation and destruction, birth and death. And then there's her voice, her last words, her spoken echoes, where she wanted to search the depths of the Golden Order, and she was moving away from, as she called them, the early days of blind belief. Maybe Marika knew all along that fate itself was the lie, that the only way to end the cycle was to break it. The more I uncover, the more it feels like the Shattering wasn't born out of chaos, but from purpose, a plan set in motion long before we ever set foot in the lands between. Maybe Marika had been planning the end of the Elden Ring for a very, very long time, and every move, every betrayal, every so-called miracle wasn't devotion to the Golden Order, but the slow, deliberate act of killing it. Thanks for watching.